So I see right here in my very first paragraph that I have a link, so I can stay right here. Now I already have links set up here, but we're going to change this just a little bit. So I have an A link, a visited, a hover, a active, and focus. The link itself is saying that it's going to be underlined, and it has a color given. My visited also has an underline, and it's just a little bit lighter. I personally see no need for this. Depending on the design of your site, your end user may be a little confused as to whether they've been to that particular link or not. Now, with that color change just being very slight, they may or may not even notice that there is a color change on the page. So we're just going to add that in with the one above it. So I will select it here, and I will highlight it, and I will copy that. And I'm just copying the text, not the actual properties and values that go with that particular selector. I will click in a link, making sure my cursor is just right after it. I will do a comma, and then I will paste that in that same selector. Now I can delete this and get rid of that particular rule because I've just added it in with a link. So my link and my visited basically look somewhat the same normally anyway, and now they look exactly the same. My hover and my active and my focus really at the moment only have a text decoration of none. So I'm going to click on my edit rule, and we'll make this a little more obvious as to the fact that we have a color change when you roll your cursor over it. Personally, I think it should be obvious in some way. In this case, it is an underline when they are just looking at the page, and when they roll their cursor over it, the underline goes away. I personally like it the other way around, but whatever makes sense for your users, and if you do usability testing, then that will tell you which one you actually should use. And I click OK. I'm going to click on my live view so I can actually see what that looks like on my page. Great. So we changed our body to our 62.5, but I probably would have gone ahead and made a particular rule for strictly my paragraph. I want my text to be legible, and I also want enough white space around everywhere so that I am the one that's guiding where the users go on my page, not that there's so much text that they don't know where to look next. So using your white space is extremely important in our usability of our page. So we've got an area down here at the bottom that is part of our footer. So this is another example of where we can do a compound selector and have the paragraph in this particular section then look a little bit different than it does on the rest of the page. If this were truly a footer where I've got my copyright and maybe some other link information down here, I typically don't want that to be the exact same text as the rest of the page. This is basically complementary to the rest of the page. I want people to take a look at it, but it is not as important as the rest of the text on my page, so it's not going to be as large. So if I scroll down here to see where my footer is at, and then I'm going to click my cursor in my page again, always taking a look at the order in which these things are in my tags on my page themselves. I will click on my new CSS rule, and I don't need the container in there, and I'll just keep my footer and then the paragraph after it. Notice all there is just a space. This doesn't need a comma after it. It's not another selector type that's after it, so we don't need a comma. I will click OK, and let's make this fairly obvious. We'll make it a little bit smaller, and let's make it 0.8 ems. And we'll give it a different color, again, to make it really obvious. And how about red? And now when I click Apply, I see that only the text in that particular area, the paragraph in that particular area, has changed, and the rest of the page is the same. So now we can move on to looking at our navigations.